Hello YouTube, Uncle Lucky here. Welcome back to another episode of Comic Book Cuisinart. This is going to be a special episode because it's not really news or reviews or anything. It's more of a conundrum that I find myself in. You see, there's a lot of shows coming out on TV right now that are super popular for comic books. A lot of movies coming out. I mean, just like I said in another video, it's a golden age for comic book lovers, a new golden age, a new renaissance, if you will. It's really cool because me being a guy born in the 70s who grew up with all of these TV shows and toys that were considered just, passe or extremely for the nerdy kid, it's really interesting to see how everything has come full circle and how the most mainstream stuff that none of us would have ever thought would be mainstream. So I find myself in a weird situation being a comic book collector because, well, here's the setup, here's the story. Years ago, I don't know, late 80s, maybe early 90s, my mother knew that I was really into comic books. She nurtured me into that situation. She didn't think it was dumb or whatever. She really enjoyed that I enjoyed it. So she would go to a lot of garage sales and things like that, and she'd see, boxes of comic books sitting around for a couple of pennies, whatever at the time, and she'd pick up 5 or 6 for me, just in passing, because she knew I liked comic books. She didn't know exactly all the stuff that I was into or whatever. She would just buy me handfuls of comics and bring them home when she got home from doing yard sales and stuff like that. So one day she comes in with 4 or 5 comic books that she had picked up at a garage sale, and she handed me these comic books, and I thumbed through them, and the one that she hands me, along with some other weird comic books, is this one. Okay, now this is where the story is going to get super duper weird, so stay with me. She hands me this comic book. It's called The Vikings. A movie, I think it was from the 60s, starring Kirk Douglas. Never saw, I still to this day have never seen this movie. But she handed me this comic book, and I looked at it, and being polite to my mother, I said, "Oh, thank you," and I just kind of set it down to the side, like, it wasn't Spider-Man, it wasn't Green Lantern or anything like that. So I thought, okay, that was nice of her. It's a very nice comic book. I just put it to the side. So now here, I don't know, a couple days later, I see this comic book sitting there on my dresser. And I think, okay, I'll open it up. So this is where it's going to get really crazy. I'm taking extra care to hold this comic book, and you'll see why. When I open up the cover of this comic book for the first time, I see that it's a Superman comic book, right? It's a Superman comic book. So now, here's where we get a little bit out of sorts. This is a Superman comic book with a different cover on it. If you look at the side of it, I don't know if you guys can see it, the staples are rusted, okay? And they are in different places on the spine of this comic book. This is an oddity. I'm looking at a comic book with a completely different cover on it, and it's stapled in 2 different spots than it looks like it originally was. But then when I open it up, it's a Superman comic book. Okay? So now, look at this. This is the cover. Unassuming, you would look at this if you weren't into something like the movie The Vikings from the 50s or 60s or whenever it came out. you would look at it and go, okay, it's the Vikings. And then when you open to that first page, I see Superman. Then you look at still the front cover. It's got shots from this movie that came out. It even says there, the Vikings, whatever the 910, 1958. But now, when you swing over here, Action Comics number 252, May 1959. Okay? Anybody who knows anything about comic books knows exactly what that leads into. First appearance of Supergirl. And I'm so being careful with this right now. So now what do? I've got this situation where I've got a comic book that is the first ever appearance of Supergirl ever in the comic books, okay? Due to some strange, unforeseen flub in the cosmos and realities, that it somehow got this other cover on the comic book. I'm completely baffled at how this happened, because somebody took great care to put a cover back on this thing. Okay, they took the staples from the spine and made sure that they reinserted them into the original holes in the other comic book. I don't even know what to do. I've been sitting on this comic book for over 20 years now, and I still don't know what to do with it. I really don't. It's a first appearance of Supergirl ever with a completely different cover on the comic. So what do you guys tell me? To all the fans out there, all the comic book lovers, to anybody who's a collector, you tell me, what do you do with something like this? It's a comic book that is in good condition with the original covers, I think, worth thousands. This one, it's not in the most epic condition, but it still was taken well care with just a different cover. I'm always baffled about this one, guys. I've been baffled for years. I don't know what to do about it. The only thing I can do right now is keep it under wraps and keep it under plastic and keep it safe. But you guys tell me. I am at a loss. I'll see you guys on the next one.
Shut up and sit down.